Raters, thank you so much for your question posted on my YouTube channel. And so I promised to deliver. Here it is. What are the challenges in the first 6 to 12 months coming to Canada? And by the time that you've got to Canada, you kind of, one of my friends said, you pretty much emotionally here already. Or are you? So I think in the beginning, one of the big things for me that was challenging was having the guilts. And what the guilts mean is you get to Canada in the first week, it's cool, it's all adventurous, and you're figuring out new things, finding new things. In week 2, if you've got kids, it gets a little bit more difficult, depending, even if it's winter, the kids are inside quite a bit. And then the kids start to cry, and they start to miss their friends, and you start to think about your friends. And especially with children specifically, when they're crying and when they're missing their old things and their grandma or their grandpa or their nanny that they've grown up with forever, it can be their sport and their buddies. If they're teenagers, it's multiplied by 50 because they've already got their friend group and they've been torn apart from that. And when you see your kids upset like this, you kind of think, sure, did we do the right thing? And I think that's where the guilts come in. You feel like, I am the one that made this decision. We've, sold our stuff, lock, stock, and barrel. We've moved to Canada. Did we really do the right thing? And so I think that is a challenge. And you've got to remember what your whys are and why you're here. Because I, like many thousands and thousands of South Africans and other expats in Canada, we are here and our children are very happy. And I think that you need to remember that. So as a team and as a husband and wife couple, or if you're here on your own, you need to sit with your kids or with your family and constantly communicate and have these discussions about why you moved to Canada. And it's that old saying, it just takes time. So trust me on this one, you're gonna have those feelings and it's completely normal. I think it's important to also talk a little bit about whether you have children or not, small children. I've mentioned in my other videos as well, but it's really important to me is the small kids react differently when you move countries. And so you'll have your extrovert outgoing firstborn, or it's the other way around, like me, who you think, oh my word, they're going to find friends and it's going to be so great and they're going to be fine. The kids, they are like the opposite. They become introvert, they cry or whatever. And smaller children, they quieten down quite a bit, I have found with my other friends. And then you have the shy introvert child who's lashing out and angry and has so much anger. When little children don't have words to communicate how they feel or to express how they feel, they throw stuff around, they do weird stuff, and you just need to be aware of it and to expect it. Constantly talking to them. I've mentioned in my other videos, make sure that you have stuff around them that makes them feel comfortable. Their toys, their books, all those kind of things. Do the things that you usually do at home. Try and do those things. If you read to them at night, read to them. Do those things, but just be aware of it, that kids, everybody acts differently, and even parents act differently. Our husbands and wives and our partners, we all do things differently and we handle it differently. And moving countries is a really big thing. I never got it until I was a year and a half down the line living in Canada thinking, sure, I cannot believe I actually did that. And then when I meet people that are 2 weeks fresh off the boat in Canada, I think, oh, I'm so glad I'm not them. But you have to go through that process, and it's an amazing time, but it's not easy. So it is a challenge. So take note of where your kids are at and just be very sensitive to that. Finding a school is challenging. Schools, maybe you need a school for this child and a school for that child. And we come to Canada with our South Africanisms. And those of you that know and you're already in Canada, you know when you came here how there were certain things that you held dear to your heart because it was what you did back home is what you kind of need to do here. It's not the same. The public schooling system in Canada is one of the best in the world. Private schooling is hardly required. I mean, it's free. So you know that any school you go to here is going to be amazing. Unless, for instance, you look on the website and you see, wow, it got a rating of 2 or 3 out of 10. There's got to be a reason why, and you can do that research. But generally, the schools are fantastic. And the most important tip that I got from a destination consultant, her name was Jackie, when we first got here was, Andrea, find a school where your children are in the majority and not a minority. And I think that was such a great tip. And really, guys, take that to heart, because for me, if my children, I realized, were in a school where culturally they didn't fit and majority of kids kind of English was their second language, it can be really hard to transition and to integrate. So both is specifically Georgia, she was really into field hockey. And so we found out that in the downtown core and sort of midtown, there weren't schools that actually offered field hockey as a sport. And there are schools, by the way, that offer rugby and field hockey as a sport. And a lot of them are kind of in the Halton region, which is kind of where we stay in Oakville. And that's one of the big reasons why we live in Oakville, was originally because of the sport for Georgia. And by the way, female rugby or girls rugby is huge in Canada. And if you watch any of that kind of stuff, you'll see that they perform very well in the world rankings as well. And there's a lot of scholarships and sponsorships for your daughters if they play rugby. And it's quite a high level of rugby, which you might even be surprised by, but it's incredible over here. So yes, you need to find a school. Don't make schooling your priority. All the schools are fantastic, and it's really important that they integrate well. It's challenging to know where you want to live. It's a difficult discussion to have because you might be coming here with a job. If you come here and you have a job set up, fantastic. You know where you're going to work. You can kind of plan where you want to stay. So if you work in downtown, for instance, and you want to come and live out in Oakville, which is like 35 kilometers from downtown, if you live close to a GO train or a place that's easy to commute from, it's not so much of a hassle. But if you are living in Oakville and you're very far away from transit and transport to get to downtown, that's going to be difficult. If you both work in downtown, it's easier to kind of live in the downtown area or close by so that transport is easy for you and your family, because you'll find that the winter months it's difficult to commute. It's challenging, but it's not difficult. It's just a little bit harder. Sometimes there's snow, there's this and that, and it's cold. It's nice to be able to come home from work and that commute isn't so long. So I would say a practical would be is if you have a job, kind of live close by if you can, or close to transport or buses or trains so you can get to your job. It's very closely linked with also what your kids are into. So like for instance for us, if Georgia's into field hockey, we kind of wanted to stay in Oakville because it was closer, the schools were there. So it was a school that had field hockey, it had rugby, we were interested in all of those things, and that's why we live in Oakville. Kevin has a kind of more of a flexible job. Some days he can work from home, but most of the time commuting is easy in and out for him using the GO train at the Bronte station or at Clarkson. I guess you might also want to know, I mean, do I want to actually change my life around and live in the downtown core where it is exciting? You can stay in an apartment, walk downstairs, and you're right at a Starbucks, at restaurants, you can walk your dogs, you're in the middle of town with this beautiful, amazing vibe. Or do you want to be in suburbia like you were in South Africa, in this incredible environment of where kids walk around? I mean, they ride their bikes to and fro from their friends until it's dark. It's completely safe. There are beautiful trails and forest areas where we are in the suburbs. It's just an amazing way to live. So that's just also important for you to decide where you want to live. My bestie Tamsin, I asked her, like, Tamsin, what were your challenges? Like, I'm doing this video content. Like, what are your thoughts as well? Like, what did you struggle with? And she's like, oh my word. You remember all the paperwork you had to do in South Africa to get to Canada? So it's all that stuff, IELTSs, all your academic stuff, shutting down stuff in South Africa, selling homes, cars. It's just unbelievable the amount of paperwork. And she says, you know, like when you've done that and then you get to Canada and you're like, oh, hallelujah. Well, the paperwork starts again. Sorry, but that can be a challenge. But this is the upside. You've got to get your driver's license. You've got to get your social security number. You're finding schools and you need addresses and it's contracts and you need to get a checkbook and all these things that are new. But let me tell you, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, it is so easy to do it. These people are so super helpful, polite, amazing. The process is quick. They post the stuff to your house. When they say a week, they mean a week. It's amazing. It's an easy process. It's hardly a challenge. So yeah, it's amazing. And then there's the other side. Maybe you're coming to Canada and you don't have a job. You're moving over, you are both, or you on your own, you're going to look for a job, you've come on a study visa. I don't know how you've got here. But if you don't have a job, then it's like, okay, so where do we live? Which schools are we going to put our kids in? What's going to happen? And so that in itself, that is a challenge. That is stressful. And there many thousands of people have done it. I've got friends that I know that worked for like a spa tub company and then waitressed and waited all over the place. They work for stationery stores. You name it. I met a lady yesterday and she's amazing. She got a job within a week. So if you have a visa and you can work, there are things for you to do. You get paid really well. You get looked after really well. Maybe you need to change jobs a couple of times to find out where you need to be, but just get stuck in there. I know that that's stressful. I think for me, if we came without a job, that would be the #1 challenge, is what are we going to do? Otherwise, that's about it. Those are the challenges. School, mostly your job, schooling, where you're going to live, finding, unless, of course, you find it challenging to use a checkbook, which you haven't used in like 25 years. Or it's super challenging to peel the stickers off all the fruit, because we get fruit from all over the world. You might find it challenging to use the self-checkout because you just don't want to stand in a whole long line. And it's like so easy to do self-checkout. Using the drive-through ATM. Oh, and remembering that it's now on the left-hand side. Drive-through ATM and it's safe. It's awesome. Oh, it could be challenging for you to actually sit through a drive-in movie. We have that in Canada. It's so cool. Anyway, very challenging, very challenging. You might have a challenge with the 75% sales that go on in Canada. Banana Republic, like cool Victoria's Secret, Pink, like amazing brands. If you know Gap, 75% sales. It's a challenge. It's also very challenging to deal with super helpful, polite people all day. Oh my word, like how do you deal with that? It's a challenge to deal with unperforated cling wrap. They don't have that in Canada, but you can find a way. I'm sure you can find a way. So, but hey, those are first world challenges. I love it.